industrial investment. And so while we are investing over $10 million in streets and over $5 million in water infrastructure, we're also trying to make an investment in the sidewalks and the infrastructure of downtown to make it more vibrant and attractive for private investment. The city is not looking to single-handedly rebuild and recreate downtown. We're trying to improve the infrastructure in downtown so that there's an environment in which private investment is willing to come to our community. And so this is one piece of the overall strategy that we have to improve the infrastructure and improve the resource base for our community. And so to tackle this, we weren't comfortable as a staff alone developing this plan. And so we contracted with Friesen Nichols and their planning team to take us through a series of workshops and conversations. And this plan is the culmination of about 6 months worth of work and a lot of conversations with members and stakeholders of this community. So, Ms. Wendy, I would like to invite you and the representatives from Friesen Nichols to give your presentation and outline the substantive points of the downtown master plan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all so much. It has been a real pleasure over this time to be able to work on this plan. I appreciate your comments about downtown. I would certainly echo that in working on a lot of downtowns across the country. It's been really neat to work on such a authentic place here, and so appreciate everybody and their time. I do want to go through a quick presentation. My name is Wendy Bonneau. I lead our urban planning and design practice at Friesen Nichols. I have with me Sherry Chang back in the back. She's a landscape architect, and she's been an integral part of this plan. What I want to do, since this is the last presentation that we have, I want to go through a quick recap of the project. I know many of you have been involved. You were at a lot of these meetings. I see folks in the audience that were also a part of that. But I'll go through a quick recap for the purposes of those that have not been involved, the vision and goals, go through the master plan, and then a little bit on the implementation. I mentioned just a few of our project team members, and this is some, you've got more. I think we've got a few that are listening online, and then others that have been a part of this project, from looking at transportation impacts and roads and so on as a part of this project. So just a quick recap for the study area that we were tasked to look at that does focus on the specific part of downtown, right outside the doors of where we are right now, between Main and Washington and Alamo. If you'll see on the presentation that you have, the yellow boundary shows the overall downtown area of what we're considering and we're looking at as a part of this project. The purpose of this was to look at development, redevelopment, how to activate space, how to create that vibrant downtown that Howdy just mentioned, to be able to create more vitality here. And also the city owns a few key sites, and so we're looking at what to do with those city-owned properties and how we can best develop that and redevelop the area. We did have a very robust engagement process. We started this in March, and then we had an advisory committee that we met with 3 different times throughout the meeting. They were very, very helpful, so I do appreciate all those that volunteered their time to serve as a part of that advisory committee. We then also had a couple of public meetings in June and then another one in October where we presented that. So we've gotten great feedback at all of those meetings that we had. Just a quick recap of some of the things that we went through in those process over the last 8 months. We did a vision board and asked everybody what their vision was for downtown. We created some concept boards of what we could do and got a lot of feedback on what were some of the important things to citizens, such as sidewalk accessibility and handicaps and access and things that we could do, signage and wayfinding. We also talked a lot about the streets themselves and how do we best get parking in there along with sidewalk improvements. We looked at different things, from everything from narrowing the streets to widening certain sidewalks and what was possible, and looking at different ideas for that. We also looked specifically at two particular sites right outside City Hall. There is vacant property right out in front of the mural that the city is looking at a potential plaza in order to bring more people and activities and entertainment to downtown. So we looked at what are some of the options for that and what would citizens see as being an important concept for that. And then also across where the farmers market currently is, there's also some city-owned property there, so we looked at some options for that. So within the plan itself, we have recommendations for all that. And at the last public meeting that we had, we brought forth all those different ideas and how are we signalizing that. We also looked at a broader context all the way coming up 24, coming in from Texas A&M Commerce. I mean, how are we getting to downtown from all of these different areas? And so while that was a broader scope, we did want to think about access and wayfinding and all those things to help people bring awareness to downtown. I'm sure that there are folks that probably come here to the university and may not ever even make it to downtown and realize what a great downtown that you have. So overall vision and goals that everybody felt was on target for the vision. If we ask about what do we want to accomplish, that downtown commerce is a regional destination for history, culture, and community. Locals and visitors are drawn to this unique blend of business, entertainment, and public spaces, characterized by walkable streets, inviting outdoor spaces, well-established architecture. Downtown commerce functions as the heart of this close-knit community. That, in one statement, sums up what we're trying to achieve. Some of the specific goals that are within the plan is to bring those new destinations to downtown, to improve the pedestrian and vehicular circulation, as well as parking, to attract new residents, retail, entertainment businesses in and around the downtown area, and to look at how we can create more festivals and things that bring more year-round activity. So to do that, the plan does include a master plan. We started off looking at just the future land use. If you see on this map, the red area is your historic buildings within the downtown area. There's some of the green areas that are parks. Your blue on this map is your public spaces and civic areas. We did look at some of the transitions just right outside the downtown area. What are some areas that could redevelop over time that help support some of the vitality within the downtown area? And then within the plan, there is an illustrative concept plan. We took that down to the street level to look at parking and streets and how those things could lay out, what specifically we could do with the plaza and the farmers market sites, and what were some of those highest and best opportunities. So quickly running through each of some of the projects that are in there. Main Street, obviously, is a key street within the downtown area, looking at how we can create better parking and safer sidewalks. I will tell you some of the options that we looked at initially was maybe narrowing some of the streets. We did work with TxDOT as a part of this project, and there are some challenges with that that we can't necessarily do. Plus, we heard from your citizens that parking is really important in downtown, so we don't want to eliminate that. So we did go back and massage some of those things that we came up with to make sure we are providing ample parking, but we're increasing the pedestrian connectivity and sidewalks and replacing some of the trees that may need to be replaced and so on. So looking at how that streetscape could possibly be redone. These were some of the inspiration photos, if you will, and just examples of certain scenarios, because we know you have some grade challenges in downtown on particularly some of the sidewalks, and especially along Washington. So as it is developed, we think about how the farmers market site could be developed, then what are ways that we can improve access and make that more pedestrian friendly, because that is a very narrow stretch there. There's some site issues with where Bonham meets Washington, some safety concerns about how you flow within that intersection. And so those are all things that we looked at and addressed some of those solutions with as a part of the plan. There's also some ideas in here of how to improve signage, again, the connectivity, potentially even put bollards on that road. If you think about where you're having a big festival or boat art days or things like that, where you could use that street as some food truck, area and staging area. So we looked at some of those improvements. We've got some of those recommendations in there. And then just Washington as a whole, looking at how that becomes a gateway. And you'll see in this middle photo, there's the physical element of a gateway, the stand-up sign, here you are. But then there's also just ways that you could do improved signage along that road, or even in the bottom right photo, how you can use an empty storefront of a building that's currently in transition, how you can sign that and call attention to some of the areas that you have. You do have a few pedestrian and vehicular conflicts. Again, Washington is one of them. At that corner, you got some site constraints as you're coming around some of those buildings. So those are just all things that we took into consideration as we're laying out the concept plans for those streets. And really it comes down to a priority of what's most important to you, because there are a few situations where maybe you do need to lose 1 or 2 spaces in order to get a really good sidewalk going through there. Or, there's some trade-offs in some of these things. So those are all things that fit in the context of your downtown area, but that still provided a good view corridor from the plaza to the farmer's market. So this is some ideas of the plaza design. One thing that I think is really important to note, we ask a lot of questions throughout this of what are some of the things that we want to see? And there was all kinds of different ideas in terms of we want an event lawn, we want some kind of shade, and additional trees. We want perhaps a water feature. We want places to sit. We want to be able to have a small staging area where we can have a concert. So all of those things are program elements. And it's almost like if you take a bunch of Legos and you have a stack of them, there's different ways that they could fit together. So in all these cases of concepts that we're showing, they're ideas, and they could be moved around. They could be tweaked in terms of when you get into design. We showed about 5 different concepts of this plaza throughout the process, but these were 2 of the ones that we landed on. The one on the left with more of an event space over that faces the mural. And then there was another concept that got brought up at our last meeting of where that event space could be right here on the corner along Alamo, kind of facing up to the northeast. And so we laid out a concept of how that could be. These are some images of what that could look like and how we could develop that space with sidewalks, with shading, still being able to create a green lawn that would be exciting for events and families to come out and spend time on that lawn, and yet a little bit of a raised area where we could create an entertainment area for some kind of staging or music. I think you've got some, you just mentioned the marble and granite company that you have. I mean, there's a really good opportunity to perhaps use some of that here. We had some different feedback on the water feature. That initially, that's something that everybody wants until they realize how much it costs and how much it is to maintain, and then sometimes it's one of the first things to go, and that's kind of typical because they're fun, but we know you're already doing a splash pad, and so there's some ideas where that could come out. There's other things that you could do that replace that kind of activity. So again, these are just different views and ideas of how all that could be designed. And these were some of the inspiration photos of things that we looked at of how you could perhaps use the granite, or the marble, or how you could incorporate that into a design and use that for seating opportunities, or even as a part of a water feature if you so choose to do that. And event spaces, staging areas, and things that allow those things to happen. And we realized that lighting is an issue. That was one of the things that we heard, that some work, some don't. It's probably time to upgrade your lighting. There's all kinds of new technologies out there to be able to do that and create music, to create Wi-Fi outlets or plugs or different things. And so those are all things that we looked at as a part of the plan and recommended as a piece of this. Whoa. Did I do something?
You have to go to the laptop. In the slideshow.
So sorry. While they're pulling this together, I do have a question for the audience here. If you had the opportunity, chose to take the opportunity to come down to any of the public meetings, and I see many of you in the audience, and I see that many of you were the ones sticking the stickies on the boards, please, by show of hands, raise your hand if you were here and participated in part of this planning process. So, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we did have a fantastic committee. I'm sorry, I don't know what I pushed to knock this out, but
You need to close PowerPoint and reopen it. It's on the desktop.
okay, y'all, I'm so sorry about that. Thank you for getting it back up there. Okay, there we go, lighting. So now I want to talk about where the farmer's market is. And this got raised at the last meeting, and the question of why would we make an investment in a farmer's market that's only good for a couple of months, and across what would be the plaza, to the other side of the street, across Bonham Alley to the farmer's market, and really look at that entire site holistically to be able to create an event space that could be flexible for multiple uses as you go forward, and also allow some new development. So this is an example of what that could look like. Some of the program elements that you'll see as a part of this is a new pavilion that actually would house the farmer's market or any other kind of events, trade shows, different things that you would have. Also restrooms, that was one of the big requests that we had, to be able to look at how we could do some public restrooms as a part of this project that would serve all of the greater downtown area and be able to have, again, additional parking and some space out there. So this would connect right across from Bonham Alley. This is examples of how that would connect to that building across. We recognize that as we do this, Bonham Alley would need to be improved. We recognize that that is one of the projects that would need to happen. This would be north, kind of looking back towards the downtown, and the back side of what would be the farmer's market, and how that could be used as event space for, again, multi-uses that you could utilize this area for. This were some of the inspiration photos that we thought were very appropriate to this space and would be a really good utilization of this area and bring that opportunity to downtown commerce. So then the last part of the plan that is in here is the implementation plan. And I know that this is too small to read, but I just wanted to be able to show you that within the back of the plan, there are specific items, there are costs associated, timelines, how those could be done to be able to give you different ideas. That there's master plan actions, there's operational and programming actions, and then finance actions. And then there's some various funding tools and funding priorities. From the feedback that we got on terms from the last public meeting we had, is just some of those high impact projects that are a part of the plan. The Main Street streetscape being probably one of the first things, or one of the main things that was called out. The plaza design, Washington Street, and then Alamo Street, and then the Farmers Market, Bonham Alley, and then other types of gateway and park type improvements just from a signage perspective. These are all ballpark cost in today's dollars, and so again, this comes down to design and programming of what those are. But we did want to give people the ideas of order of magnitude. Some of these are costly projects, but then there's also funding available for those things. And so as we could capitalize on funding and bring that in, then we certainly want to do that. So I think that's what but I've got one more slide in here. And that is some of the easier wins. So some of those are really more the big ticket type projects, but there's all kinds of smaller, lower cost, easier things to be able to do to enhance the downtown area, just overall code enforcement in your ordinances, storefront appearance of some of the existing businesses, creating a brand, looking at those events and being able to bring events into the downtown area. I heard y'all had a great pop-up event, which was exciting to hear, and so more of those types of things, monthly activation. You've also done a really good job with some of the murals that are in downtown, and there was certainly expression of we like those and the opportunity to do more of those. Those are some of those things that are lower cost, but things that could be done. So I gave you a 8-month project and tried to get it within 30 minutes. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. We do have the report that I believe you all have seen. Unless there are any comments or changes to this, then we will be providing that to you. But really, we're at the last step of the process to be able to bring this forward to you for adoption. And with that, I will just tell you all thank you so much for the time. It's been a fun project, and I'll be around to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Elizabeth?
Wendy, thank you to you and your team and the staff that didn't travel up here and the time that they invested in this. And again, those of you in the audience that participated and those online that contributed to this process, it's very refreshing to see people that care and are committed to the community get engaged and talk through. And it wasn't 100% agreement. There were pros and cons and yes and no's, but we all worked together to move this community forward. And so we appreciate that. Mayor, if there's any questions that the council has, or if you want to open up some public comment, this would be an appropriate time to do so.
Council first. Any questions from the council?
I just have a couple of comments. We talked about, we're talking about downtown and how we're helping to bring businesses downtown. But I think I'd like you to go back over, there's one part of it talks about the downtown sponsorship program, so that people will understand we're not looking at just downtown businesses. We're looking at how other businesses in town can be a part of this as well. And if you could just give us a little more information on that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of, we've worked with a few downtowns that have done different types of sponsorship programs to where, and you may do this for some events you already have, but being able to create a consistent list of people that businesses where can participate and become a sponsor of different events. It gives them publicity and notoriety. It gets businesses interested. Also, obviously, you know, there's dollars and things that can come into the downtown. So we've had it work both ways, where creative programs to where, You know, we've got steady stream of folks that want to sponsor different events in the downtown or be a part of like the pop-up shops that you did and things like that. And so it gets businesses more active and gives them an opportunity for that marketing piece. So I think the partnerships are so important. I mean, even with, you know, Texas A&M Commerce, I mean, it's a huge, we know that there's a lot of people that come into this town to come to that, and so that's just one example of partnerships and businesses that we really want to get that engagement. And so that's part of what that sponsorship program recommendation.
So what we're trying to do is to provide a space for everybody in town, businesses and citizens, service organizations, everything, so that they can be down here and use the space.
Yeah,
So,
yes, and even with, and with the spaces that you have and create,
Right.
that you're getting everybody to be able to participate. It is not just for the downtown
all right,
businesses or users. It is a citywide thing.
all right. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? So I would now like to open it up to public comment. As before, please try and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come and address the council?
I'd just like to say that the proposal is good, but there's some aspects that I'd like to just leave the nostalgia part of commerce downtown as is, without, you know, I mean, I heard about sidewalks and streets, and I've walked the sidewalks, and I mean, they may need some improvements. I don't know if they need to be widened anymore, but, that's one of the things, I mean, if we look at Sulphur Springs or Paris and what they've done in their downtown areas, there has to be some sense of the nostalgic part, because to me, that's what commerce is. I mean, we're not gonna be a metropolis or anything like that, but I guess that's just my own deal, is trying to keep some of the nostalgia, the aspect of the streets, and, you know, when we do Godard Dash and everything like that. Now, the commons area here in the plaza, yeah, I can see putting a stage in there and possibly being able to do concerts there in the summer or the fall or something like that, when it's a little bit cooler, things like that. And then it probably wouldn't tie up to the street so much when Godard Dash is taking place in the park and that.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments? Please, sir.
No, come to the mic.
Come to the mic, please, so we can get an adequate recording. We don't want to miss whatever you're going to say.
Thank you. Mark Rudin from A&M Commerce. First of all, congratulations. This is really cool. And I think it really affords an opportunity for the City of Commerce to be a cultural, social, economic hub in Northeast Hunt County. So congratulations, real opportunity here. I guess I have a couple questions. And Wendy, I think it may be best, Mr. Mayor, and
Please.
members of the council, if she answers the question.
Absolutely.
First of all, I'm a little bit interested in what steps, if any, have been taking to figure out ways to get people to the area, to the downtown area. And I'm speaking a little bit selfishly from the university standpoint. Any thought about increasing or improving the sidewalks from the university, or anywhere, let's forget the university, anywhere across the city, or bike paths or whatever, just getting people to there. They don't necessarily have to take the car. That's number one. Number two, the way it's laid out, is there an opportunity, for example, if the university had a shuttle? We currently shuttle people around campus. We have a large population of international students that live west of the apartment complex, west of what is it? Tractor Supply. I'm sorry. And we jog out there to get the students back there. Well, I could easily see a shuttle service that takes students from the campus down here. Is there an opportunity for a turnaround to accommodate that? And then the third question refers to safety. And I'm not saying Commerce is, I'm not saying the campus is safe or unsafe, just a different world we live in now. And what kind of accommodations, I saw the increased lighting in some of the areas, so that's what I'm looking for. We don't want to tax Chief Bassam, and we want a safe place, because it really does sound like a place people are just going to hang out for the evening, right? And so I think that's incredibly important also. So thank you.
Wendy, just so you know, he was very humble when he said Mark Rudin, he is the president of Texas A&M University of Commerce.
I can answer just a few of the comments. You know, from the standpoint of making it safer, obviously I've talked a lot about making it pedestrian safety. I think of pedestrian and bikes, you know, and those is kind of one and the same. I mean, anything other than just the cars. I mean, we know that there's a lot of car traffic that comes through here. But I think to your point, it is why we wanted to broaden out the downtown area and think about how people access it, how we get here. We did not, from a design standpoint, didn't go outside the scope, but there's definitely some recommendations in the report in terms of broadening that out and how we get here. We do want to think about bikes and other modes of transportation. I think the shuttle idea is an awesome idea, because I think that's, you know, part of what we want is we want this to be a gathering place. Your downtown is the living room of your city. And even though y'all do have a fantastic living room on the campus, but we do want people to be able to use it. And so I think your points are all valid. Certainly the increase of lighting and getting people to downtown is important for us. And I think something that, you know, we talked.
Other comments?
Just a couple of responses. Mr. Ford raised an excellent point on maintaining the character of our downtown that is unique to us. As we went through this process, there were several points in the conversation where we made the comment, we don't want to be someone else. We want to be Commerce. And so maybe it was just a small phrase, but we want to capture the unique architecture. And some of that is a very nice way of saying the older buildings that we have. But when we talk about sidewalk improvements, there's some safety issues for some of our older population to get around. But there's also some very unique historical marks and markers in the current sidewalks that we don't want to use. And so part of that design process is how do we cut out and capture those unique identifying features to our infrastructure and then incorporate them into the end result. We're finding that the migration out of the Metroplex that we're seeing around the region, people are trying to get away from concrete and they want to find dirt and grass. And so we don't want downtown to be concrete. We want it to be rural. And so trying to accomplish safety in how people move around. And Dr. Rudin, to your point also, the next item on the agenda is a grant application to TxDOT through their Transportation Alternatives Program. And that looks at what can you do to make improvements to the transportation system that aren't just vehicles and cars. And so a lot of this concept and design talks about a shared youth path. How do you create a safe space for bicycles and pedestrians that aren't conflicting with vehicular traffic? And at those points of conflict, what improvements can you make to increase safety? And so all of that is included in this plan and as part of the grant application that we're looking to submit to TxDOT. And so I think y'all kind of encapsulated, we want a place that people want to come and hang out and do things that's active and vibrant, but that is Commerce, that is not somebody else. We don't want to be anyone other than Commerce, and I think that was our goal. And so, Mayor, Council, it's the recommendation of staff to adopt this master plan, and I'll in conclusion say, adopting the master plan is not committing us to spend $6 to $8 million tomorrow. It's adopting a plan, and then we use that plan to then go after funding. You can't get a grant if you don't have a plan. So you need a plan to then go get some of this external funding that we need to bring into our community. And so staff recommends adoption of the plan as presented.
Okay. So at this time, speak to you. Becky and I will be recusing ourselves from voting on the plan because we are both business owners downtown. And although our vision is bigger than just downtown, we serve all of Commerce. we don't want anybody to think that we are self-serving in any way in supporting this. So I'm going to turn over the vote to Mayor Pro Tem Anthony Henry.
Swap places.
All right. Okay, on agenda item 8, which is a possible action or resolution adopting the Freeze and Nichols Downtown Master Plan. Do we have a motion?
I move that we adopt the Freeze and Nichols Downtown Master Plan as presented.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This resolution passes.
What else to do, hum? Okay, item 9 on our agenda tonight. Discussion and possible action on the approval of a task authorization with Freeze and Nichols for a grant related to downtown sidewalk improvements and authorizing the city manager to execute any necessary documentation. Mr. Lisenby.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to present this item. One of the reasons many people have heartburn when cities spend money on plans is it is well documented throughout the history of local government that you spend money on plans that turn into three-ring binders that then sit on a shelf and never get looked at again. And that is not how we prefer to do business in commerce today. And so, case in point, as we went through this downtown plan development, we talked a lot about, and the participants ranked sidewalks and handicap accessibility as the #1 priority. And so, Texas Department of Transportation has a grant funding program called Transportation Alternatives Program. They released a call for projects and the preliminary application of these grant applications. And so the application that we're proposing is for a project cost of right at $4 million. If you look at all of the engineering, all of the design that has to take place to satisfy Texas Department of Transportation. It's one thing to design something for yourself. It's another thing to design something to satisfy a state agency. And so the engineering, the design, the construction cost, all of that combined to do all of the sidewalks, all the streetscapes, and all the safety improvements that are identified in this plan is right at about $4 million, depending on how we design it. And so Freeze and Nichols has been helping us get the application ready. It's due by the end of the month. And so the cost of that application is $24,500 is the support that Freeze and Nichols has provided. And if we're successful, that will provide up to $4 million of funding. And part of the Transportation Alternatives Program is for economically depressed communities. You have the chance of getting 100% grant funding. And so we meet all of those thresholds in the City of Commerce. And so we're asking for 100% grant funding for this work that is included in downtown. And so we're hopeful that we can leverage $24,500 of engineering support into $4 million of 100% free money. And so it's technically, staff can approve this contract because it's less than the $50,000 threshold. In the state of Texas, if the city's going to spend more than $50,000, it must come to the council for approval. But contracts and work that are less than $50,000 can be administratively signed. We chose to bring this to council to demonstrate that we're moving on this plan already. We're not waiting for it to become a three-ring binder with some dust on it. And so we recognize, and we've heard from the community, that the sidewalks and the safety of downtown is a priority, and we're moving quickly on that, and we're hoping to get a serious amount of free money to make that happen. And so staff is recommending approval of this task authorization with Freeze and Nichols in the amount of $24,500. be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Lisenby? There being none, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the task authorization with Freeze and Nichols for the grant related to the downtown sidewalk improvements and authorizing the city manager to execute any necessary documentation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Lisenby, and thank you to Freeze and Nichols. Item,
And they're gone.
and you are free to go. No, thank you very much.
Nothing more exciting than adopting a plan and adopting funding to go into the plan all at the same time.
It's a win-win for all of us, let me tell you. All right, moving on. Item 10, discussion and possible action to award an asbestos abatement agreement with ERI Consulting Incorporated in the amount of $48,608 for the removal of asbestos-containing materials from the first floor of the Commerce Public Library. Mr. Lisenby.
Part of the 2022 capital improvements program was a remodel project for our public library. Many people know the public library in Commerce is housed in a 100-year-old post office. And it is a wonderful building with a lot of character. Structurally is very sound. Cosmetically has aged and needs some love. But one of the challenges with that location is that there is no accessibility to that facility from people with disabilities. There's no ramps, there's no access, and there's no restroom on the first floor. You have to go to the second floor to access the restroom, and so it makes the usability of that space for all members of our community very limited. And so we began the design of developing a new entrance on the back side of the building that would include ADA accessibility as well as an accessible restroom on the first floor. We've gone through that entire design process, and we're actually ready to bid construction out to do that remodel work. At the time this was going on, the city owns the building, but the city doesn't operate the library. The library is operated by a nonprofit group called Friends of the Library, and they do a phenomenal job of operating in that aged building. And so if you've visited the library recently, you can appreciate the old carpet that's there, but that old carpet has failed. It's flopping, it's friendly, it waves at you as you go by. But there's trip hazards, there's some challenges with the existing carpet. And so the conversation was, would it be anticlimactic if the city spends $800,000 to rebuild an entrance to the back side of the library, and then you come in for the grand reopening and the old carpet is waving at you as you walk by? And so the Friends of the Library took it upon themselves. They acquired a grant, got funding to purchase carpet. And so they used that funding, acquired some carpet with the intent that the contractor we hired to rebuild the entrance would also lay the new carpet so that you only have one contractor in the whole project, not multiple contractors fighting with each other. As fate would have it with any old building, when we were talking with carpet vendors, they were looking at the subfloor underneath the existing carpet and immediately said, we think there's asbestos there. And so we, as the city, hired a consultant to come in, do an environmental evaluation. They pulled some samples, they tested it, and yes, in fact, there is asbestos under the carpet in the entire first floor. And so we can't do a carpet project without getting rid of the asbestos. And so we went with that consultant, had them put together a proposal of what the cost would be to remove that asbestos so that we can safely put new carpet down and not have to worry about asbestos out into the future. There are actually two different options, and so I want to make sure the council is, that we're transparent and that you understand what these options are. If you think of that floor as an onion and you peel back the layers of that onion, underneath the current carpet is a layer of floor tile. That floor tile is not original to the building. It was installed sometime in the past, and the glue that was used to hold that tile down has the asbestos in it. So the asbestos is not in the tile, it's in the glue. So if they remove the carpet and then remove the tile, there's glue there on the floor that has asbestos, and that glue is put directly on top of the wood floor that is the original floor of the library. And so if they go through the process of trying to remove that asbestos glue from the wood, it's going to destroy the original wood floor. You cannot save that floor. So we have two quotes. One quote is to just remove all the wood floor, remove everything, and strip it down to what we believe is a concrete subfloor that would then allow us to put a new floor and carpet in, or try to save as much of that wood as possible. But once they save as much wood as possible, then they're going to have to encapsulate and paint over it because asbestos will still be present. The price to remove everything is $48,000. The price to save the wood as much as possible is $58,000. And so we could spend more money to leave the wood there and still have asbestos present, or we could spend less money and remove everything that is asbestos containing. And so talking with the architect that we've been using, it is the recommendation of staff that we approve a abatement contract in the amount of, I'm on the wrong agenda item.
48,608.
Yeah, $48,608. Again, this is under the $50,000 threshold, but we want to be transparent with council and the community because this cost directly impacts the reconstruction project that we have at the library. If approved, we can get on the schedule for the abatement contractor. They can get in, do the abatement before we begin reconstruction of the library. And at this point, the last thing I'll say is more of an announcement. The library have y'all actually moved operations? Because this is going to be a lengthy process, you don't want to operate the library while the contractors are ripping the back of the building off. It's not a quiet environment, and libraries are supposed to be quiet. So they've moved operations temporarily across the street to the Guarantee Bank Community Room, where the quilt shop used to be. And so the library will be operating for the next several months, maybe the rest of this year, while we go through the construction process. And so staff is recommending that we move as quickly as possible on abating the asbestos so then we can bid out the construction and get the remodel work done on the library. And so staff is requesting approval of this abatement agreement in the amount of $48,608.
Are there any questions for Mr. Lisenby? There being none, do I have a motion?
I move that the council approve the action to award an asbestos abatement agreement with ERI Consulting in the amount of $48,608 for the removal of asbestos-containing materials from the first floor of the Commerce Public Library.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 11, discussion and possible action on the amendment of an ordinance related to Chapter 90, Article 6, related to commercial vehicle routes. Mr. Lisenby.
Mayor, Council, thank you. We've had a number of conversations over the past several months with members of the community that are being directly impacted by commercial vehicle traffic going along North Neal, in which we've got some fairly large, heavy commercial truck traffics driving through a residential neighborhood. There's a number of concerns associated with that, first being safety of the families, the children, the vehicles, the property, because North Neal is not designed with the width to handle that much commercial traffic. And it's actually not designed to carry the weight of that much commercial traffic, and so there's impact on the quality of the street as well. Speaking with our staff and some of our consulting attorneys, the ordinance as it was written was unclear and in some cases not easily enforced to try to keep commercial truck traffic off of that route. So staff hosted a stakeholder meeting about a week ago, I guess. We invited members of the residential neighborhood. We invited representatives from TxDOT, and then we invited representatives from those industrial customers at the end of North Neal. and we all got together and kind of talked through what would an ideal solution be for this issue. Ultimately, our desire, staff's intent, is to get all commercial traffic off of North Neal, including the manufactured homes that are leaving legacy homes. However, we can't safely make that happen without working with TxDOT to rebuild the intersection where Highway 71 meets Park Street, which is Business 11. That intersection for most commercial traffic is adequate for them to make those turns. However, it's not possible for those long manufactured homes to make that turn safely. And so the interim suggestion is an amendment to the ordinance so that all commercial truck traffic is prohibited on North Neal with the exception of manufactured homes that are leaving legacy homes. That's very close to what the current language in the ordinance outlines, but we wanted to clean that up and add some clarity. So as an example, Mayor and Council, this first draft of the ordinance includes two definitions that the original ordinance leaves out. It defines commercial vehicle. It does not define through commercial vehicles. And the ordinance multiple places talks about through commercial vehicles, but doesn't clearly identify what those are. In talking with TxDOT and other, a through commercial vehicle is a commercial vehicle that the point of origin is outside of Commerce. They start somewhere else. Their point of delivery is outside of Commerce. They're ending somewhere else, but they have to pass through our community to get to their point of destination. And so we want this ordinance to clearly identify that those trucks, those commercial vehicles, must follow the truck routes. And our defined truck routes are Culver Street, which is Highway 11, and Highway 24. And so if they're going through our community, they have to stay on those two routes and not travel through or on our residential streets. But differently, there are delivery commercial vehicles that their point of destination is within the city limits. So they're coming from somewhere and ending here to drop off some deliveries and supplies. The City of Commerce, even as a home rule municipality, we don't have the authority to deny the delivery of supplies and goods. They have to be able to get to their point of destination to conduct business. And so we're asking to amend the ordinance so that those delivery commercial vehicles have to exit the truck route at the intersection closest to their point of delivery, and they have to take the most direct route to and from that point of delivery so they're not wandering and moving all over our community. The only exception would be North Neal, because in the hours of 3 p.m. and 4:15 p.m. on days when the ISD is holding classes. Because if they're delivering during those time periods and buses are trying to come down that route, because there's lots of families in that neighborhood, there would be a significant traffic impact. And then we've also maintained that they must have at least a 10-minute gap between deliveries of manufactured homes so that they're not overwhelming the local traffic. And finally, we do recognize that persons violating this provision are guilty of a misdemeanor and can receive a citation. And so we're asking for approval of this ordinance to amend and clean up our truck route ordinances so that there is no commercial vehicle traffic allowed on North Neal, with the exception of manufactured homes being delivered from legacy homes, and they are restricted to certain hours of the day and a certain frequency. And we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Great. You mentioned the reworking of intersection of 71 and Park.
Yes.
What is the process for reworking that?
City staff is working with TxDOT, providing a documentation of the issue and the complaints, and that will begin the consideration to design process for TxDOT to look at that intersection. It's not a fast process, but TxDOT has committed to pick that up and put that on their list of projects for Commerce and make it a priority. And so staff will continue to work with TxDOT to push that project forward so that we can get some resolution and ultimately get all commercial traffic off of North Neal.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lisenby? Okay.
Mr. Ford, did we capture everything on from y'all's point of view? Okay.
Well, other than tractors going through to pick up the trailers.
Yeah.
They either stay on 71
Correct.
And Mr. Basham, yesterday at 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 trailers left Legacy back to back to back. They were following each other. There was not 10 minutes between.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to make you aware.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mayor.
Okay, so this being the, is this considered a first reading?
It is, yes.
Okay. So we need a motion, please.
I move that we accept this amendment of the ordinance relating to Chapter 90, Article 6, related to commercial vehicle routes on its first reading.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 12, discussion and possible action on ordinance calling.
1 or place 3. The filing period runs from tomorrow at 8 a.m., so January 18th through Friday, February 17th at 5 p.m. The hours to file for a place on the ballot are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And so sharply at 5 p.m. on Friday, February 17th, will be the deadline for filing for a place on the ballot. You all approved earlier in the evening on the consent agenda a contract with Hunt County Elections Administration Office that provides for some cost sharing and some resource sharing between the City of Commerce and other Hunt County taxing entities. And we're allowed to share staff and voting equipment and all of that. And so you all approved that for this election. Texas Election Code also requires that the governing body officially call the election sometime by mid-February. So that's what you all would be approving tonight. If you have any questions related to that, I'm happy to answer them. One thing I did want to point out that we changed this year is Commerce has always participated in early voting here at Commerce City Hall. So early voting will be April 24th, which is a Monday, through April 28th. That early voting time is from 8:15 to 4:45. In the past, we did extended voting hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the Tuesday and Thursday during that first week. If you all recall, back in May of 2022, there was a constitutional amendment on the ballot that called for some changes related to early voting. If you want to know all the ins and outs of that, I'm happy to share it with you. We didn't meet several of those qualifications. It applied to state and county elections, these changes. It also applied to counties with a population over 100,000. And they actually lowered that threshold to counties with a population over 55,000. So we did meet that threshold. And then the last change that they made was that the county or the early voting clerk, which would be myself, would have to receive a written petition in order for us to change our early voting hour days to the last 2 days of early voting. That didn't happen either. But in order to be consistent with the county, we are going to go ahead and move our 2 extended voting days from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to the last 2 days of early voting. That way, if any of those things do apply to us in the future, we already have citizens used to having those early voting days on the last Monday and Tuesday of early voting. So your extended hours, the only thing that changed from this year to last is your extended voting hours will take place on the last Monday and Tuesday, which this year is May 1st and 2nd. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Ms. Jacobson? There being none, do I have a motion? It would be better if y'all did the motion.
I move that we take action on the ordinance calling the May 6, 2023 election for the purpose of electing a city council member to place 1 and place 3 for a 3-year term from May 2023 till May 2026.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 13 on the agenda tonight, City Manager's Report. Mr. Lisenby.
There was no public input to respond to. Thank you, gentlemen. So I invite Ms. Jamie to give our finance update.
Ms. Campbell.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our property tax this evening. So as the first quarter of fiscal year 2023 comes to or came to an end in December, we had reached almost 35% of our budgeted property tax revenue for a total of $1.34 million. It's slightly slower collection than we had last year. Last year, we were already at 38%, but that's kind of within trend for December between 34 and 38% within trend, but it's still slightly slower than last year. January is when everybody's property tax bill is due. So our January numbers is when we'll start seeing that really start coming in. I know that's when I'll wait and pay my property tax bill. So, for sales tax, the analysis and the detail that I have is related to December, but we've already received our January numbers, so this chart will show you January. But when we get into the details, it's for December. So as of January, we've already reached 39% of our budget when it comes to sales tax, which is great because we are already past that 25-30% mark of our fiscal year. In December, you see a large skew from our budget and from our last year's numbers. In doing some research, it's actually related to, without giving too much detail or information, it's related to one vendor, and it's an out of the norm, non-recurring payment. And from what I can tell, I think it's related to a back tax situation. So I believe it's probably a one-time payment that we've received from them. And so I'm kind of to be decreasing slightly for December, but it's still an increase. We're still doing well. We're still seeing our numbers increase. That large jump in wholesale trade, that is that one-time transaction that I was just telling you about. So if you kind of take that, back that off your mind, the numbers are actually pretty within line with how they've been the last few Decembers. Talking about retail trade in December, everything kind of seems the same. What I really kind of want to bring your attention to is our online sales. And you'll see that July, August, September, everything has been kind of balancing out. We're right in that 7,000, 8,000 online sales. What I'm excited to see is how January and February look. January and February is where we'll see all that holiday spending. We'll see how much of that holiday spending was done actually here in-house service restaurants. And just to let you know what that is, that's the majority of our fast food restaurants here. And in the blue, that's our full service restaurants. That's going to be most of our sit-down restaurants that we have. And so one thing that I've been kind of going back and checking, and I always kind of check it, is I'm curious to see how we were in the same month last year and how we were in this same month before COVID. So before COVID, our sit-down restaurants, the percentage in December was at 50%. They were half, right? And then we saw a big drop when COVID came, obviously. And then last year, we saw it start climbing back up, and it was at 44%, and our fast foods were at 26%. And so we were still seeing some of these other categories, you know, like your, I want to say, like your gas station kind of snack foods and other things that had a bigger kind of chunk of it. Now we're starting to see that swing come back over to our fast foods and back over to our full service. So our full service, I think, is still picking up, still growing back to where it was, closer to that 50%. I think I'll be real excited when I see those full service restaurants back in that 50 percentile or a lot closer to that 50 percentile where it was in 2019. So that's all I have for you tonight. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm so excited. So we have a new utility bill coming out. I'm super excited. So, the postcards will be going away, and you will now be getting a full-page utility bill coming in the mail. The first bills that will be going out is going to be this cycle. Miss Rita and I are going to be working on it on Wednesday morning. So excited. And so not only, you've always been able to pay online, but now from your bill, you can just scan the QR code. We came out with these QR codes when COVID was happening, and we had to close the doors. And, you know, you find these QR codes all over the city. I'm sure people will just randomly find a QR code somewhere. But now they'll be on your bill. What's really great about this is that we're now able to go paperless. People could now sign up for an e-statement. And so once they get their first bill, there's going to be like a code on the back. So on the right side, there's a long rectangle. Thank you, Kayla. There's a long rectangle where you can sign up, and everybody will have their own unique registration code. Print you out numbers, but we can't reprint your bill right now. And so this is something that really brings us forward. And so we're really excited about this. It also has a usage chart on it. So it can kind of show people their consumption. Where was their consumption over the last 3 years, over the calendar years, the 12 months? It lets people know what their base charge is compared to their total bill. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible, give our citizens and our residents more information. There's 2 places for information. The first one up at the top, we're just going to kind of just bombard people with sign up for e-statements, sign up for e-statements. At the bottom, we're going to let people, you know, this is where you can learn about your street maintenance fee. But we're hoping to be able to use this more for calendar of events and really get some information out to people better than we could before with the postcards. So we're really excited about this. I know there's probably going to be some hiccups for the first few months, but bear with us. We're super excited. We think this is going to be wonderful for our citizens, wonderful for commerce. And it's the other thing that I hear a lot is lots of people aren't getting their bills right now. Lots of people come in and say, I haven't gotten a bill in 2 months. When we walk them over to the post office, that's the last we see of them. With this new one, we can actually track it. And so Miss Rita will be able to go into the system and say it was delivered to the post office on this date. It was put on the mail carrier truck on this date. And the mail truck carrier said that they delivered it to your house on this date. So we're looking for ways to really help and really not just say, sorry, I don't have any more information. We really want things to be better, and we're tired of just saying, I don't know what to tell you. So this is just another tool, another way for us to help our people and to give our citizens something better.
I appreciate your excitement with the new water bill.
I was talking too much, I'm sorry.
But I will tell you, I am equally as excited about your new water bill because it's not a newspaper, but it's the best thing that we have in front of us to talk to and communicate to as many people in commerce as we've seen in a very, very long time. So I appreciate that because, as we've seen over the last weekend, communication is key. And I think this gives us another tool that's going to touch a lot more people than Facebook and other social media. So thank you very much for giving us some white space in there.
Thank you.
Ms. Jacobson.
Mayor, council, as a reminder, currently we have youth baseball, softball, and t-ball going on through our Parks and Recreation Department. Registration for this started January 3rd and ends February 15th. So from January 18th through February 17th of 2023, Oftentimes here at the city, we experience a few days before the election, people stopping by and I've decided I want to run for city council. So that's a process that has to be done X amount of days according to Texas election code prior to the election. So that filing period will be from January 18th through February 17th. The Northeast Texas Children's Museum is hosting a daddy-daughter dance for the citizens of Commerce called the Royal Ball. That'll be Saturday, February 4th at 6:30. I believe, Miss Becky, you can buy tickets online. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Molly. On personnel updates, we still have some vacancies in key positions, namely in finance and administration. I know we've got some vacancies in police and fire, and so we're actively going through the hiring process. We've had some good applicants recently, so we're hoping to add some new quality faces to the team here pretty quickly, but we're looking forward to getting back to fully staffed. Project updates. Just want to remind everyone, we did complete the raw water pump station project by the deadline, and it's been confirmed that the state is not going to take our money away from us, and we're going to get out of grant jail. I emailed the consultant to ask if we were out of grant jail, and Jamie thought our code enforcement officer got put in jail because his name's Grant. No, our code enforcement officer did not get put in jail. Splash Park does continue to progress. We've stopped digging, and they're actually now bringing in new material, so you'll see that to progress. I don't know that we're going to pour concrete as fast as Whataburger is, though, because they're moving.
Boy, they sure
And so I think the community is really excited about that as well. And so intergovernmental events, Hunt County Days is happening, I believe, in March, where the mayor and I will travel down to Austin to represent the community with the legislator